So I welcome everyone to the Spirit Gathering teleconference. Today is April 18th, 2017. My name is Sally Ekaireb. Our topic is forgiving others, forgiving oneself. And we are so glad that you've joined us. We're going to use a conversation council format tonight. So after I finish my testimonial, people will have time for sharing, and all you need to do is wait for the previous person to complete, and then you can share. So now, let's take a moment to get settled, to center ourselves, to let go of the events of this day, and begin to enter the deeper, sacred space within ourselves. Now let us imagine that we are joining together, sacred heart to sacred heart, with every other person on this call right now and in the future. Now let us imagine that we are joining together in a circle with a light or flame or fire in the center. Imagine a spoke of light coming from the center of the circle to your heart. And for each person on the call tonight or listening in after, now we are connected, sacred heart to sacred heart. Now let us set our intentions. We listen to one another with compassion and curiosity. We ask for what we need and offer what we can. We deepen our connection with one another and the divine. May this sharing serve us, our communities, and the planet. And so it is. The topic I chose for tonight is forgiving others, forgiving oneself. And the reason I chose this when Laura asked me to talk is because last month, as my 60th birthday approached, I started to feel all kinds of emotions surface. Somehow, this milestone seemed important to me. I tried to feel comfortable with my aging process and the numerical evidence that I am getting old. While focusing on this event, I started to think about my first love, as his birthday is 2 weeks after my birthday. I felt a lot of sadness around the ending of the relationship, and especially about not being in contact with him for almost 40 years. With the kind of excitement about birthday, I thought about looking him up and wishing him a happy birthday. So I started searching for him on Google and was able to find him and get a sense of what his life is like today. During this process, I kept going back to the end of our relationship. And each time I thought about this event, I would feel more and more guilt. I had initiated the breakup. I had wanted freedom to date and see other men. I also had a very hard time dealing with our long-distance relationship. I was used to keeping my emotions under tight wrappings, and this man opened my heart. and created a level of the intimacy that was wonderful until we parted. And then I was devastated. We had met during our year as Rotary students. We sat next to each other on the flight to Stockholm. About 7 months later, there was a Rotary ski trip in Duved, Sweden, and we skied together for a week. Then I went to Malmö, and we had our first date. I had just turned 18 and was full of romantic notions. But the universe was against us. I lived in Ohio. He lived in Massachusetts. I was starting college at Colgate in upstate New York. He was starting college in Wisconsin. We spent a year planning visits during the many breaks, and I went to his college and he came to mine. I went to Cape Cod and he came to Ohio. But as sophomore year approached, I felt that 3 more years of this did not make sense. My father had taught me to think like a man, and this relationship was not rational. It was a beautiful relationship. There were no tensions, no fights, but it just didn't make sense. So I told this man that we should see other people and see what happens over the next few years. We should take advantage of present opportunities. We would stay in touch and possibly get back together in a few years. His response was not what I had anticipated. He did not want to keep in touch. He did not feel he could be friends. We were lovers, and he loved me too deeply to be friends. It would be too painful. He used to call me the sunshine of his life. And I think he wondered what he was going to do without that sunshine. What could I say? I could not force him to be my friend. I had changed the game. But somehow I had ended up losing instead of winning. I had wanted my freedom and my relationship. Now I have my freedom, but no relationship. We did keep in touch for a few months. And then at the end of the school year, he stopped at Colgate on his drive back to Cape Cod. He arrived in the middle of the night. I had given up hope that he was coming and cried myself to sleep. The memory is so foggy. When we talked about the year gone by, I remember feeling concerned about him, his family life, as his parents were divorcing, and he had started smoking pot. All the love I felt for him was still there, and I longed to make love. He refused, and after talking for a few hours, he got back in his car and drove off. I now knew things were final, and I felt so empty and alone. I spent that summer at Colgate, as everyone had to do one summer term to graduate. One weekend, my old boyfriend's best friend came to visit me. I had visited him in Boston before, and I just considered him a friend. But somehow, on Sunday morning, we made love. I don't know what led up to the act. I do remember feeling awful as soon as it was complete. It felt so wrong. I felt so dirty. I learned the difference between making love and having sex. Both of us felt a sense of shame, and everything was very awkward until he left. We have never spoken since. And so I was left with this impossible situation. How do you make amends to someone when you don't even want them to know you have done something horrible? I could not confess my mistake, for I knew it would hurt him deeply. Furthermore, he had asked that we don't keep in touch. Over time, I began to imagine that he did learn about this incident, and I felt terribly betrayed by it. I had inflicted a wound, and in so doing, I had wounded myself. I could not heal either of us. All of these memories and thoughts flooded my mind as my birthday came and went. As I tried to recreate his life since we graduated, I found pictures of him that made me miss him even more. I had this strong desire to discover if his life seemed good, for I felt guilty that I had abandoned him when he was struggling to keep things together. And yet, at this time, it seems his life is quite good. He is successful work-wise, married for 30 years, has a child, and thus my mind found a new way to torture me. I was alone. I am divorced. I had failed in my relationship, and now that my kids were on the other side of the country, I was alone, so very alone. I was flooded with a whirlwind of emotions: grief, remorse, self-loathing, and guilt, all intertwined. As soon as one thought would finish, another would start in on me. I felt like I was under assault by the worst tongue lashing my mother had ever given me. Only it was my voice in my head. Finally, I separated that voice from me. I remembered a lecture by Dr. Ahmed about how the brain lies to you, and how Mary Baker Eddy writes about denying the delusion. I refuted this censorious voice and talked back to it. I said, no, I am good. I am God. I have made some mistakes, but my spirit is good, and it is of love. I am the reflection of love. I refuse to take on the identity of evil. I ached on every level. My body was tense, and I hadn't slept well in weeks. My mind focused on tormenting thoughts that brought on waves of emotional pain. Finally, I got a hold of myself and realized that I needed to process this relationship and let go of this painful past. I knew I wanted this man's forgiveness, but I did not know how to get it. So I focused on my intent on being forgiven and being forgiving. Feeling calmer, I focused on being as honest as I could. I began to look back in time as a neutral, unprejudiced observer. In reflecting on our relationship history, I realized that I had acted out of unconscious anger, and I still felt angry. How could he terminate our relationship? Didn't he realize I had needed to feel his presence in my life? I had needed our friendship to continue, just as he had needed it to end. As the truth about my feelings became clear, I kept searching to find other insights about the truth of our history. I realized that I had put many judgments on his actions, and even more on mine. How could I have had sex with his best friend? This destroyed our relationship, as well as his relationship with his friend. The cruelty of the act stung like salt on a wound. I wondered, how could I have ever done such a thing? Again, my mind started to give me a tongue lashing. I again refuted it and said, I am good, only God. There is only God, only good. From this situation, only good can come. Tears were streaming down my face. I so longed to be forgiven, to be lifted from the weight of this guilt and shame. I again delved into my memories and looked closely at these two young lovers. I saw the vision. We were 18 when we met, 20 when we split. We were so young, so innocent and naive. I thought of how much wiser I am now, how differently I behaved during my divorce. I remembered how the very first man I had feelings for had committed suicide when I was in Sweden, and how strongly it had affected me. My menses had stopped for 9 months. They returned with the start of this romance. I questioned if I had unconsciously felt the ending of this relationship to be another death. As these thoughts emerged, so did feelings of compassion. I felt love and compassion for these two young lovers. The expression star-crossed lovers came to mind. For whatever reason, we were not meant to be together. He had created a life filled with meaning and people to love. That felt good, correct. I held on to that love and asked again to be forgiven. I thought about my feelings regarding not ever seeing this man again as being a kind of death. I had promised not to intrude into his life, and I knew and know I need to hold to this. And yet, when I looked into his face on the computer, his eyes connected with mine, and we were connected. I felt the energetic connection. I've realized that I have and have always had the means to connect with him through love. If I let go of needing to have connection on the physical level, on the personality level, I could embark on a loving, spiritual relationship. I focused on that. With love and light, what would I want? What do I need here? I wanted to forgive him for abandoning me. I wanted to forgive myself for sleeping with this other man and any other actions I had taken or said that caused pain. I wanted this man and his family to have a wonderful life, filled with love and joy. I wanted to create the most benevolent outcome for all. I had a vision of what this could be as just a blur, nothing concrete, but just an open-ended, beautiful warmth as a vision. Just as previously, my thoughts and emotions had been a whirlwind of negative turbulence. Now they were swirling with positive energy. And then something amazing happened. I felt a tingling throughout my body. It was like sparkles flooded down from the heavens and entered into the depths of my cellular structure. I sensed a release and sense of something floating off of me, like water evaporating off the skin. My mind and emotions calmed, and I felt forgiven. A thought passed through my mind. This is what diseases like cancer come from, such deeply entrenched toxic energy. This event happened a few weeks ago. Since then, I have continued to process thoughts and emotions. Memories long buried have surfaced, often after waking in the morning. One memory was of Elsa, my counselor at a camp I went to during high school. I received the image of her on her cot, resting during rest period with the blanket over her head. She would do this after getting a letter from her boyfriend. Yes, 45 years ago, this special person in my life had gotten engaged to her old boyfriend's best friend. Maybe this was the incentive for my exploration with my boyfriend's best friend. Maybe not. What seems important is that the censorious part of me that had blocked this information for so many years has been lifted. Another morning, I woke from a dream skiing in Duved, Sweden. I lay in bed, remembering the beauty of the mountains and the delicious luncheons the Rotary students would pack to eat while taking in a beautiful vista from the top of the mountain. I could taste again the rich Swedish bread and the juicy oranges. I feel so grateful to be able to retrieve the happy memories and reintegrate them into my consciousness. I feel so blessed to have experienced this healing and to continue to watch it unfold. In ending, I would like to say that I greatly appreciate the writing of Mary Baker Eddy, especially her work, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. It is from this book and the monthly readings that I was able to refute the negativity of my mind and the delusion it presented. She discusses the compassion Jesus and his disciples felt before healing someone. This helped me lead to find compassion for the young lovers and enter into greater relationship with love, spirit, truth, and principle. I would also like to thank Tom and Joan Rudholm for teaching me about the most benevolent outcome for all. Holding this vision is truly transformative. My testimony is complete, and I would now like to open the forum for other people to share as they're comfortable. In order to share, you will need to press the *6 again. So whenever you feel comfortable, there's no rush.
Sally, this is Joan. That was just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you for all that you have contributed to me over the years that prepared me for this.
Sally, thank you so much for sharing that. I've been through a very similar situation in my life before, and hearing about your process on healing it, very powerful, and lots of love for sharing and everything like that. Just, I hear you.
Thank you. So one thing I'd like to add to what I said before is that when I was in this turmoil of emotion, I really didn't know how to heal the wound. And after this beautiful healing, I've tried to reconstruct what did I do? And what I think is so important to underline is going to that place of compassion, feeling the love for myself, for this other person. And what was amazing to me is at the end, I really felt like I was in this higher state, a higher plane. I did not feel that I was, in that ground body. I felt that I had lifted my spirit or connected with a higher part of myself. And to me, that came out of this feeling of compassion, as well as the intent to heal not just myself, but this man, this feeling I have that the wound is not just at my end, it's between both of us. And my hope is that as I have made this shift and created more freedom and a greater sense of ease in my life, that he is also feeling the same thing reflected in his life, so that both of us have greater capacity to love and to be loved. For that's one of the things that became clear to me, is that there have been levels that I have closed myself from love and closed my heart. And it's been a very interesting process to watch my mind try to drag me back to that other place. And I have had repeatedly over the week gone back to feeling of love, the intent of creating the most benevolent outcome for all, and holding a vision of my guides of light, connecting with this family's guides of light, and asking for the most benevolent outcome for all. And what is amazing to me is that feelings of grief, of sadness, of remorse, all of these negative emotions shift when I start going through this process. And again, I attribute Mary Baker Eddy because her founding of Christian Science is about teaching people how to heal with Christ consciousness. And we learned from Christ that we are given the power to forgive. And along with it goes the healing of forgiveness. And it's amazing to me that while I've been instructed to forgive people since I was a child, I don't think I've ever truly, truly felt the power of forgiveness until this incident. And I hope that on some level, this spirit gathering can capture that spirit of forgiveness and love and transfer it out into this world.
Sally. Tom and I are going to have to go now. Thank you so much for letting us participate. It was absolutely wonderful. And
Okay.
thank you, everyone.
Is there any word that you would each like to leave? And we will start the checkout then.
What? Tom just said go inside.
Thank you. We'll have it stay in the heart and mind. Thank you for holding space.
Our pleasure.
Would the other people like to share a thought that they would like to have stay in their heart and mind as we close the spirit gathering?
Yeah, this is Laura. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was very powerful to hear, and I really honor you for sticking with your inner process, for, living in your inner life so deeply, which I find is rare in this city world that I live in. And I'm going to really sit with your wisdom about living in compassion, holding a space of compassion, and the best outcome for everybody in the situation concerned. And there are some situations in my life where that could be very helpful. So I'm going to work with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Stacy, is there anything you'd like to state as something you will hold in your heart and your mind as we move to the closing?
Yes, I would also like to say that I will hold feeling compassion for myself and moving forward with things, and also dealing with others and honoring others. And that's a wonderful blessing. Thank you. Really powerful.
Thank you.
Sally.
So in closing, I would like to thank you for joining us with this Spirit Gathering teleconference. The call may be archived as an MP3 at www.tzaddi.org. Phone access to the recording of this call is available until next month's call. For playback of the recording, dial 712-432-1085. Access code 990322 #. We hope you'll join us for our next Spirit Gathering on May 16th, 2017. We meet on the third Tuesday of each month. These calls are hosted by Tzaddi, an interspiritual, metaphysical organization founded in California in 1964. Tzaddi welcomes, nurtures, and supports people in celebrating and more directly experiencing their relationship with the loving presence of the divine. Our programs are open to people of any race, color, or national or ethnic origin. visit www.tzaddi.org to learn more. We will close now with thanks and a blessing. Thanks to Tzaddi founders Amy Keyes and Dorothy Blackmere. Thanks to all of you who have been a part of our community tonight. And thanks to the Divine who supports us always, even when we are not aware of it. I would like to close with the prayer of love, peace, and light. Love before me, love behind me. Love at my left, love at my right. Love above me, love below me. Love unto me, love in my surroundings, love to all, love to the universe. Peace before me, peace behind me, peace at my left, peace at my right, peace above me, peace below me, peace unto me, peace in my surroundings, peace to all, peace to the universe. Light before me, light behind me, light at my left, light at my right, light above me, light below me, light onto me, light in my surroundings, light to all, light to the universe. Thank you all. I wish you a good night.